Is there any cure for violence? We see unhealthy relationships around us. Maybe we've experienced them ourselves. How do we get back into our heart space? How do we heal? I'm your host and chiropractic advocate, Jenna Quinton, founder of Adjust Your Media. In today's episode, I'm talking with Dr. Stu Bittman. He is a peaceful warrior, a trail guide from head to heart, a doctor of chiropractic. So he had his practice, Safe Haven Chiropractic, for 23 years. And one thing of the many that were special about it was based for many years on donations with a box on the wall, and people were encouraged to pay the most their heart dictated. So what's also special is he works with his wife, Hillary. They're ordained ministers, and they also travel the world with Chiropractic From the Heart events, which were born out of Sigafoose Gatherings, which Dr. Stu can tell us more about. So thank you for being here. You have a special story that I've heard before about how chiropractic didn't cure domestic violence, but how it supported innate intelligence. So welcome. And yeah, we want to hear this story.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Jenna, so much. Yes, interesting. Before I launch into the story, that Sigafoose, that you mentioned, used to tell a similar story, which I don't know if that pre-framed me for this experience or not. But anyway, his gentleman had a knee problem. Mine had a shoulder problem. And again, I always say the only reason I know he had a shoulder problem, since I didn't really ask people about their symptoms very much, was because he insisted on telling me about his shoulder problem every single time I adjusted him. So literally for about 2 months, twice a week, I would adjust him. And then he would get off the table and start to roll his shoulder. And invariably, after a while, I knew what was coming, which was a pretty reasonable question of when is my shoulder going to feel better, Doc? And the only reason it wasn't really a reasonable question is because I had probably told him many times before, including in our pre-care mandatory talk, that I was not there to fix his shoulder. I didn't really know how to fix shoulders, that I knew that innate intelligence created his shoulder, and I knew it had the pattern for that shoulder, and I knew it could heal that shoulder, but I would constantly remind him that maybe it was working on something else. The innate felt something was more important priority-wise. And that would always seem to satisfy him until the next time he came in, and we would eventually go through the same song and dance again. And I tried to mix it up and match it up. Sometimes when he would ask me, when is my shoulder going to feel better, I would simply say, I don't know. And that would seem to remind him of the things I had said before. Other times I had to get into more detail. But anyway, after 2 months of this, I was starting to feel like he wasn't, and I hate this expression, but I'm going to use it, not getting it. The reason I hate that expression is most of the time when I hear that, I translated that into the chiropractors not really getting it. And I know that was probably the case for me to some degree as well. So now the other reason I was feeling like he wasn't getting it was he used to bring his 5-year-old daughter, whose name was Emma, with him to every appointment. And I think after a while, I was beginning to think he did that just to torture me or something, because he never, even though I would ask him every single visit, usually after the shoulder song and dance, I would say, just today, can we check Emma? And half the time he would ask me why again, and I would explain, well, and in fact, sometimes I'd bring him over to the safety pin cycle and say, well, Emma's 5 years old, but if there's something going on, if there's interference, if there's part of the body that's recreating itself out of the pattern or abnormally, we may not know about that till she's 30, but do you really want to wait? And he would say things like, well, maybe next time, or I'll talk to her. And then one day he said, she doesn't want to. And I said, well, I understand that. And if she'd gotten adjusted and then decided she didn't like it or didn't want to, I would completely honor that. But then I think towards the end of this 2 months, he also, sorry, this is a long story. He said she doesn't want to. And I said something like, well, when you vaccinated her, did you get her opinion on that? So that was sort of a wake-up call for me that I was losing my Stu love vibe with this guy, and that he was starting to affect me, and I was starting to think about him when I went into the next room, which was an unforgivable thing for me, totally unacceptable thing. And so I went home the night after this 2 months period, and I said, I have to invite this guy to go somewhere else. The reason I had to think about this and actually like prepare a little speech about it is because in my experience up to that point, when people decided that it wasn't the right place for them, they just stopped coming. But this
Mm.
guy kept coming. And so I went home and I prepared a little speech, and I went in the next time I saw him, prepared to tell him that he's probably better off with somebody who's going to directly address his shoulder, since that's what he seems to want. And I got this little thought flash, adjust him again. And as I say, and it's not really dishonest at all, it sounded like my mother's voice. So I paid attention to that, and I adjusted him again, and fully expecting a different result, because I got this great thought flash. But sure enough, I adjust him and he gets off the table and he starts to do this. And I know what's coming. So I said, before you ask me that question again, may I ask you a question? And he says, sure. And I said, okay, you've been coming for 2 months. You've been getting adjusted twice a week. Have you noticed anything has changed? It's inconceivable to me
Yes.
that you could get adjusted for that long, that often. And I'm hearing that your shoulder's not where you would like it to be, but has anything else improved? And he said, like what? Well, I don't really know like what. That's why I'm asking you. But I gave him a few examples of things that are very common, like more energy or sleeping better, or I think I might have said getting along with people better or something like that, but I'm not really sure. He denies anything has changed. So again, I'm about to deliver my speech, and I get a second thought flash. It's a big day for thought flashes. And this time it was 2 words, ask her. And at first I'm confused by this message. I don't even know who her is, but I'm looking around. He must have thought I was very strange. I'm looking around and I see only one her, and she's 5 years old and she's out there playing with my toys. So I said, well, must be her. I didn't think it was Hillary. So I call Emma into the room, and I'm thinking, God, this is really silly, but I go ahead and do it anyway. Emma, been coming in here for 2 months with your dad. Have you noticed anything different about your dad? Is there anything changed about your dad? And she surprisingly starts to cry and cry and cry. And finally she catches her breath. Dr. Stu, he's not beating me up anymore.
Yeah.
That was the story. Question everybody asked me is what happened after that. So what happened after that was I never saw them again. But I'm sure that was more embarrassment than anything else. But
In a way, the work had been done. The stage had been set. I think about this story too sometimes because we plant seeds in whatever our work is. We plant seeds and we hope to see that harvest, and we water and water. So in some ways, as a story, it is complete.
I felt like, yeah, pretty happy ending too. I
Mm.
mean, I certainly feel like Emma got what she needed through chiropractic care, even though she didn't get adjusted. And yeah, and as I say, usually when I tell the story from the stage, I don't have a stop beating your kid adjustment. I didn't even know. So I love the story because it is a pure chiropractic story, and it illustrates maybe the less we know, the better. It also illustrates that, again, if I had known I had legal obligations that may not have turned out so well.
Yes.
But the fact is that I was very proud of myself because I could have done something with the shoulder. I went to a mechanistic school. I was the valedictorian at LACC. I was the shoulder valedictorian. I could have manipulated it or gone out and borrowed some physical therapy machine. I wasn't about to do that, but I could have. And if I had based my care on what he apparently thought he needed, I don't think he would have gotten what he needed. So that's why I
Exactly.
think the story is beautiful.
You've mentioned innate a few times. I love to ask, what is your definition of innate? I think sometimes we understand the word like intuitive, like birds intuitively migrate or things like that. But what is your definition of what is this term innate?
Well, I tend to have probably a pretty spiritual outlook on it. For me, it's okay to say, but God within. It's our
Absolutely.
divine spark. It's our piece of universal intelligence that is not only, in my opinion, responsible for this Earth suit and for its physiology and for its survival, but it's also my connection with everything else that universal intelligence has its hand in, which is everything, right? So for me, it's the same as higher self, or there's many names for it, but For me, it's the most authentic expression of me.
Yes. So when you talk about these thought flashes, do you feel like that is coming from your innate? Tell us about these thought flashes.
I feel absolutely where they're coming from. They're not things I figure out. They're not the usual input that I could tell. That often has my mother's voice. My heart does not have my mother's voice, even though that one thought flash came. There's a certain rightness to it. There's a certain, like, it's like messages from home. It's the best way I can put it, even though sometimes the messages are a little scary or they don't make a lot of sense or whatever. But I've learned to trust them, and they've led to great things in my life, even the scary ones, or maybe especially the scary ones.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I love how you take these concepts and it's never like whenever we talk or the things that you do, you never keep it at this theoretical, unapproachable level where people are left being like, well, sounds nice, but I don't know how to do that. So, one tool that you and Hillary have created is your book, which is a beautiful expression of applying all of this to relationships and to an important relationship. So tell us about your book.
Oh, thank you. Well, it's called The Trail of Breadcrumbs, a year's journey back to the heart of your relationship. It's a mouthful. So it's a little book. It's a very accessible book, I think. So it's a combination of Hillary and my story and how we have somehow managed to live and work together in relative harmony. We've had our moments, of course, side by side now for 40 something years, and to do it in a way that's aligned with principle and aligned with chiropractic philosophy and aligned with our hearts. So thank you, by the way, for saying that I tend to make things practical, because I think it's a very practical book. It's got a lot of practical suggestions, because our thing is, and chiropractors, I think, can relate to this. You'll hear a lot of chiropractors say, well, my patients don't get it, or my patients, what do we hear? My patients maintain their cars and their houses a lot more than they maintain their bodies, right? So I think this is equally true about relationships.
Yes.
And chiropractors are not immune. Chiropractors might do better than the average population in taking care of their bodies and the importance of well-being on all levels. But I'm not sure if they're any better than the general population in giving their relationships enough time and focus and energy and conscious, use the expression, work.
So I wanted to show the book. I will put the notes in the notes, I will put the link so that you can find it. But like you can see, it is just a beautiful little book. And yeah, with all of the exercises and things, I love that you put exercises in so that we could, even when I listen to an audio book about relationships, or sometimes it's like, oh, I'm gonna need to figure out a way to apply this, to integrate it. And so that is a beautiful way that you've done that. I was actually, in preparing for this call this morning, I thought about some of the things, because Hillary is a wonderful heart math mentor, and thinking about some of the things that she has shared about getting into our heart space, which is really where that innate intelligence is. I think I could say. This morning, my son had a fever yesterday. He's 5 years old. He had a fever yesterday. And so he stayed home from kindergarten. And then this morning I was like, oh, he's fine. He's going to school. He needed to change clothes because he put on something that he couldn't wear and all of that. And I'm bustling. I'm doing the morning bustle. And I look over and he's just crying. And he's like, I'm so tired. I don't want to go to school. And usually this is a complicated question for me. I go back and forth. Do they go to school? Do they not? What do they need? Are they going to be bouncing around by 10 o'clock? And I thought about you, thought about Hillary, and I cuddled him up in my arms and I breathed with him for a few moments. And then I really wanted to say in my heart, instead of asking my head, should he go to school? And you always say we shoulding on ourselves, but breathing with him for a couple moments, calming him, and just in my heart, letting my heart answer. And the answer was very calm and very peaceful and very much this 5-year-old should not go to school. How
That's
easy?
awesome.
Well, how easy is that though?
It is easy, and it's remarkably easy. And it works every time that we work it.
Yeah. That we can,
Yeah.
in our relationships, that we can have this powerful tool of tuning in and listening in. And now he has been asleep on the couch for the last 3 hours.
What would complicate it for me is remembering the times that I didn't go to school, even though I wasn't all that sick. But anyway, that's another story. So, innate is in the heart. Innate is everywhere. But I do believe the heart is our access point to it. So it's amazing, and Hillary will do an exercise where, people are confronted with some kind of issue or problem, and she'll say, okay, just write down your current thoughts or feelings about it. And then like 3 minutes of breathing in and out of your heart and asking your heart maybe for a different strategy or a different perspective on it. And it's amazing how much wiser our heart is and how much wiser we are when we take the time to, access it and let it speak. So that's essentially what the book is about. It's about creating more space for that with the person we love the most, which you would think would be easy. But as you know, I think, and as most people know, it's probably the hardest person for me sometimes to remember that I am love, right? Because there's an epidemic in our society, I think, about relating to each other at the level of our head. And, and maybe when we're in fear or something gets triggered, that's where we immediately go. And so, of course, we have those patterns etched pretty well in our brains, especially with our partners and people who are especially good at finding our buttons and stuff like that. Right. So, yeah, it's such a powerful tool, but it takes, you would think I love this person. It's enough. Right.
Yes. Yes.
But it's amazing how quickly I can forget I love this person.
Yes. Yes.
It's amazing how quickly I forget I trust this person. It's amazing I could forget that this person would never do anything to hurt me, and most of the time it has nothing to do with what she's doing or saying or not doing or not saying. It's yeah, you're nodding a lot, so you know what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Yes, we have been married almost 16 years. And for all the things that we have figured out, it seems to be just the endless journey of discovery of, yes, buttons that can be triggered. So also you have so many other ways that phrase, the trail guide from head to heart. So you have your podcast, Stew on This, that comes out weekly. I wanted to mention that. You have the Warrior Circle that is also weekly that people can join. Tell us a little bit about the Warrior Circle.
Warrior Circle started sometime early on in COVID, listening to my clients and, listening to my own head, listening to the world, how, I don't think there was ever a time in our history where everything we've talked about up to now was more prevalent, relating from our heads and therefore from fear and isolation. And we had help with all this, of course, in my opinion, but people were angry. People were scared. And I'm talking about our people. And I don't like to separate our people from people in general, but I think people know what I mean. So Hillary and I decided to start this weekly Zoom thing just to remind people that, perhaps all's not lost, that love is still here, that the principle didn't go anywhere, and that, if we don't stay strong, what's going to happen with the principle? What's going to happen with the world? Not to lay that responsibility on us. So let's meet weekly and take a break from the world and get stronger and build up our resilience level. And, so I usually speak it's only 25 minutes, folks. I think it's well worth it.
Yeah.
I also send out a bunch of recordings. So if you can't make it's 12:30 in California on Thursdays, 12:30 in the afternoon. Yeah, it's 10 minutes of me speaking, and then Hillary takes the theme of the talk and leads a meditation to sort of drive it a little deeper. And that's it. It's
wonderful.
It is. It's been a big gift for us and a big gift for a lot of people. And
yes.
So cordially invited to that.
Well, and then we mentioned your Chiropractic From the Heart events. People can go to bittmanbliss.com to see your upcoming events. You have some coming up in Europe, but we've also mentioned that you do one-on-one coaching, which is just invaluable, as well as Hillary doing heart math mentoring. So I love that you just have a whole rainbow of ways for people to not just get in touch with you, but to get in touch with their hearts. I think about my kids and who needs an auditory way to learn, who needs a visual way to learn, who needs kinetic one-on-one, and you guys just offer all of that. So I'm going to put all of that in the show notes so people can find it. But as we wrap up, is there anything else, any thought flashes, anything that you want to add?
Not been a big day for thought flashes yet today, but yeah, I'd love to be your trail guy. I really like that. Did you come up with that, or did I come up?
No, you did.
Okay, I did. Yeah, that's good. That's one of my
Past
good.
you was
one
on
of my
fire
good-
or something.
Yeah, I just feel like I've been on this journey from head to heart for a long, long time, and 18 inches, and it's definitely a lifelong journey. But I will remind everybody that every micron of the way along this journey bears so much fruit, and it's just so beautiful. And in all the work that I think I do with people and advocate, I really do believe it will help create a better future for people. But what I really know is that it will create a better present for people. Because for me, we don't know what the future is going to hold. I'm sorry to tell you folks that if you believe otherwise, but life's a big surprise party. So, the only common denominator is that hopefully we'll be there. And so since we'll be there, so will our love, so will our wisdom, so will our heart. So let's learn to access those things. Let's learn to be the most resilient, loving, strong person, and to find that clarity and certainty that unfortunately we tend to look outside of ourselves for. Let's look where it is. And so we can bring that out no matter what happens in the future, and whether the world cooperates or not. I think that was very good. I want to record. I want that back, what I just said, because that's I think the essence of me and what I have to offer the world. And I will also say, and this is my final, that thank you for acknowledging all the stuff we do, but it's not entirely altruistic, shall we say. Everything that you mentioned is a tremendous gift for me, and it helps me stay where I need to be. So I'm glad that it blesses other people too, believe me. But it's a win-win.
Well, certainly. Well, thank you for sharing all of this. I'm going to close with something that you and Hillary frequently say, which is have the best day ever and have a beautiful day in your consciousness.
Those are good too. Thank you. And same to you.